standards. So first we will go with IAS 16. I request everyone to please focus because the conceptual understanding is very, very important. Now, the first important thing. So the questions at this level are likely to ask you to explain and justify the rules in the relevant IAS as to ask you to apply those rules. It means that here, as I mentioned in my session, you need to have the conceptual understanding and you should also have the skill to link this particular conceptual understanding to the scenario, right? So first, when we go to this IA 16, what exactly property, plant and equipment means as per accounting standard 16? So what accounting standard 16 speaks about this property, plant and equipment? So it means it deals with most of the issues associated with non-current assets. Now here, if you say it is an asset, now, generally, one of the biggest problems that arises in the real world is the decision as to whether an item is an expenditure or an asset. So we already have an enough discussion on this. I don't want to dig into that because already we know what exactly the capital expenditure and what is this revenue expenditure. So when it comes to IAS 16, first it mainly focus on recognition. So once it is recognized as a non-current asset, then it comes to initial measurement. So how to measure that particular non-current assets. Then in that particular measuring process, very, very important. Now let me zoom this slide. Yeah. So now just see this. Now initial measurement, whenever you are measuring a non-current asset, so first, what are the things which we need to include and what we need to exclude? Now this is very, very important for your MCQ part. Now, when it comes to the things which are to be included, so the first thing, directly attributable cost in getting the asset into the working condition for its intended use. It means whatever expenses you incur in order to get the asset ready for your production or any other operating purpose. Nothing but the expenses which are incurred, which makes the asset in working condition. All those expenses are to be included when you are measuring that particular non-current asset. Examples: the acquisition cost, nothing but the purchase price, improvement cost, then commissioning and testing. So commissioning and testing is nothing but we can say that the registration fees and other things. So whenever you are measuring the cost, we need to include all the expenses which makes the asset into working condition. The common thing, the amount which we incurred to purchase. Suppose example, if I incurred around $10,000 to purchase an asset. Yes, that particular 10,000 should be incurred. And if you incur any improvement cost, that should also be included in the cost of asset. And the registration, nothing but the commission and testing charges should also be included. Now, when it comes to assets under construction, suppose if it is a construct based asset. Now, if you are incurring some expenses to construct an asset, in that case, the labor cost, the whatever cost which you incurred for the, yes, here I can see that somebody raised your hand. Any query? Yes, participants? Okay, no issue. So when it comes to the assets under construction, we will be incurring the labor costs, the cost which is incurred towards the labor. Site clearance. Yesterday we discussed an example also regarding the site clearance. Installation cost, professional fees. Professional fees is nothing but the amount which is paid to the surveyor and other expenses. So here, what are the expenses which are to be included in the cost of asset? All the expenses which are incurred to make the asset into working condition. And if it is related to a construction, the labor expenses, site clearance, installation cost, and professional fees, all these expenses are to be included. I believe you are with me till now. Any query on the inclusions of these expenses? Yes, participants?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Yeah, perfect.
No, sir.
Now exclude. Now this is very, very important. Here I can see that some participants are raising their hands. I don't know whether it is accidentally happened or do you have any query? Yes. Yeah. So exclusion. So what are the expenses which are to be excluded in the cost of assets? The first important one, cost incurred after the asset is ready for use but not yet being used. Very, very, very important. For your better understanding, let me give an example. Suppose a company purchased a machine. So they purchased a machine on 1st January 2020, and the machine was installed in the factory process. But the usage is not yet started. The usage of the machine is not yet started. But if they not yet started also, they will incur certain maintenance expenses, right? So if you incur any expenses on an asset which is already installed but not yet is used, that cannot be considered. We cannot include those expenses in the cost of asset. You cannot include it in the, you cannot assume it as a capital expenditure. It should be excluded. We need to show it as a revenue expense. Similarly, repairs and maintenance and early settlement discount. Now, any idea about this early settlement discounts? Now, in simple terms, early settlement discounts are nothing but we say it as cash discounts, because discounts are two types: trade discounts and cash discounts. Now, trade discounts are nothing but the discount which we get when you purchase the products in bulk quantities. That is known as trade discount. Suppose example, if I am purchasing a single product, I may purchase it for $10. But if I go with the purchase of 10 products, then definitely the trader will give me certain discount. Now, these kind of discounts we'll say it as trade discount. Now, the cash discount means
Trade
when we
discount.
purchase the products on credit basis. And if your supplier gives certain credit period, let us assume that 2 months or 3 months. But before your due date, if you settle the amount, your creditor, nothing but your supplier of raw material will give certain discount. That is known as cash discount. So this particular early settlement discounts or the cash discounts should not be considered, should not be included in the cost of asset. So these are the major inclusions and these are major exclusions in the initial cost of asset. So before I go with the next element of this concept, let me know if you have any query. Yes. Now we done with the initial expenses. So whenever you purchase it, we done. We know what should be included and we know what should be excluded. Now the next element is subsequent expenditure. So it doesn't mean that you will incur the expenses only at the time of purchase. So subsequently also you will be incurring certain expenses. Now how to deal with the subsequent expenses? So any subsequent expenditure on existing property, plant and equipment should only be capitalized. Very, very, very important point. If you incur any subsequent expenditure on the existing property, you should capitalize it. Nothing but you need to include it in the cost of asset only when that particular expenditure improves the economic generating capacity of that particular asset. Yesterday we discussed that. It means if any expenditure, if it maximizes, if it enhances the economic generating capacity of an asset, yes, that particular expenditure can be capitalized. Example, suppose if you construct one more floor on the building, then that particular extra floor expenses can be included in the cost of building. And you have a machine, and let us assume that the present capacity of the machine is to produce 10,000 units per year. And you install a specific product to that particular machine, and after its installation, the capacity of the machine increased from 10,000 units to 20,000 units per year. Now, the expense which are incurred for that particular extra component can be capitalized. Is that clear? Unless it increases the economic benefit, the subsequent expenditures cannot be capitalized. If it increases the economic benefit, yes, you should capitalize this. So, any query on this, participants? Now
No,
the
sir.
next one, depreciation, and the most interesting one, the depreciation element. So yesterday we understood that depreciation is something which is generally charged in order to follow the neutrality or the matching cost. So in this particular depreciation, we systematically allocate the depreciation on an asset over its useful life. Now we'll try to discuss something about useful life. Now participants, can anyone let me know what do you mean by useful life? It means whether the useful life of the asset are determined by the seller. Suppose if I am purchasing a laptop, does it mean that suppose I am using Dell laptop? So does it mean that the Dell company will let me know the useful life of this laptop? Who determines this useful life?
The one who is using the asset, the
One who
consumer.
is using the asset, nothing but as you said, consumer, right? Okay, so consumer will determine the useful life of an asset. Perfect. Any other examples? Oh, sorry, any other answers? Now, generally, here, suppose if the consumer estimates that the useful life of an asset is 10 years. Now, what does it mean? Whether the asset can be used only for 10 years? Is it a one-time estimation or a continuous estimation? Try to understand my question. Suppose on 1st January 2021, I purchased an asset. And I estimated that the useful life of an asset is for 10 years. Now, does it mean that I will be assuming same useful life of 10 years throughout the life of the asset? Or do I need to estimate the useful life of asset every year?
It keeps changing as you use it.
It keeps changing as we use. Yes, yeah, it can be accepted. Any other answers? So my question is simple. Do we need to estimate the useful life of an asset only one time, or every year do we need to estimate?
Every year we need to estimate.
Every year.
Perfect. Very good. Every year we need to estimate because generally these are known as accounting estimates. Now, why we need to estimate? Now, let me give an example so that you can clearly understand. Suppose when I purchased a specific motor vehicle in 2019, and I assumed that the useful life of that particular vehicle is 10 years. Now, in 2022, so suppose in 2019 I purchased, means in 2022 its remaining life of asset will be 7 years. Its remaining life of asset should be 7 years. But suddenly there is a announcement by the union government. So the announcement is all the existing machines or all the existing vehicles should be replaced with a BS6 vehicles. Nothing but BS6 vehicles are nothing but these are the vehicles which ejects less carbon emission. Nothing but more environmental friendly. So in 2022, government passed a rule that all the existing assets or the existing machines or the vehicles should be replaced in the next 3 years. Now, in this particular example, now in 2022, in my financial statements, instead of considering the useful life of asset as 7 years, now I will re-estimate it to 3 years. Because there is a rule by the government that I cannot use these assets for more than 3 years. So because of these kind of reasons or the circumstances, it is mandatory for the management of the company to estimate the useful life of the asset every year. It is a continuous process. If you find any significant change, definitely you need to change the useful life of an asset. And once the useful life of the asset is changed, the new life of the asset is applicable from the current year only. You should not make any adjustments to the previous year. Let me give a best example so that you can understand. Let me open my Excel sheet. Let us assume that in 2019, an asset was purchased. An asset was purchased for 1 lakh. It was purchased for 1 lakh. And the useful life of the asset. So assume that the useful life of asset is 10 years. So it means that in 2019, how much depreciation I will be charging? What will be the depreciation? If I assume that the company is going with straight line method, 1 lakh divided by 10.
10,000.
Yes,
10,000.
it is 10,000. Now in 2020, if it is straight line method means there is no change in the depreciation, same 10,000, right?
Same 10,000.
Yes. Now in 21 also 10,000. Now in 2022, you estimated that the life of the asset. So the life of the asset is only 5 years. The life of the asset is only 5 years. Actually, how many years it should be? 7 years. But now you estimated that the life of the asset is only 5 years. Now in 2022, how much depreciation you will charge? What will be the depreciation amount?
14,000.
Is it 14,000? How you got it?
Remaining amount is 70,000 after depreciation, and
Perfect.
5 years is remaining.
Very good. So now technically we say it as written down value, WD.
Written down value.
Yeah. So the written down value, as you mentioned, 1 lakh minus 30,000 we already charged. So it will be 70,000, and the depreciation amount will be 70,000 divided by 5. So it will be 14,000. Now the reason for explaining this is, now in 2022 the life of the asset is changed. Now this new life should be applicable from 2022 year on. There should not be any changes to this particular depreciation amount, because we do have an accounting standard called IAS 8. Now IAS 8 deals with changes in the accounting estimates and accounting policies. Now whenever there is a change in an accounting estimate, now because the life of the asset and the depreciation of the asset, these are known as accounting estimates. If there is any change in the accounting estimates, that change should be applicable prospectively. Prospectively in the sense that change should be done from the current year only. There should not be any change to the previous values. I believe you understood this. As per accounting standard 8, if there is any change in an accounting estimate, now the change should be applicable from 2022 only, because in 2022 only the change is done. And there should not be any adjustments to the previous depreciation values. Now this treatment is known as prospective treatment. Prospective treatment means change is applicable from the current year. There is no change to the previous values. I believe it is clear, participants.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So let me go back to this. So depreciation, generally we compute as per the useful life of an asset. Now let me add 2 more lines to this. Now generally useful life is nothing but it is something which is related to the economic benefit, not about the production capacity. The asset can be used after that particular useful life also, but useful life is something which is related to the economic. If you purchase an asset, how many years the asset can generate economic benefit to your entity? How many years the asset can generate economic benefit to your entity? That is known as useful life of an asset, not the production capacity. Clear? Right. Now, when it comes to the depreciation, I don't want to dig into that. We generally follow straight line method and reducing balance method. So straight line method, the formula for computing the depreciation is cost of asset minus residual value divided by useful life. Now, residual value is nothing but after its useful life, when you dispose it, you will expect some value for that. So that is not that you can assume it as scrap value or the residual value. So after its useful life, whatever amount which you are expecting when you dispose it, that is known as residual value. So while computing the depreciation, the cost minus residual value divided by the life of asset. So that will be charged as a depreciation. Now, when you follow the other method, that is written down value method or the reducing balance method, in that case, we charge the depreciation on the written down value of that particular year. So of that particular year, whatever the written down value is there, that will be charged as depreciation, right? So one more important thing here you need to understand, all non-current assets, very, very important. All non-current assets with finite useful lives must be depreciated. All non-current assets with a finite useful life must be depreciated. There is no exemption. Now, finite useful life means the asset. Now, can anyone let me know the meaning? What exactly the finite useful life? Technical meaning I need, because I already mentioned what exactly the useful life means. Now, what does it mean? Finite useful life means
Number of years it can be used up to its complete capacity.
number of years it can be used, complete capacity. Yes, your answer is perfect, but just I gave a definition for the useful life. Can you try to put those words in your answer?
For how many years it generates economic benefit?
Excellent. So finite life means if it means how many years we can expect that particular asset to generate the economic benefit, whether 10 years or 5 years or 15 years or 20 years. And participants, you need to understand that it is only an estimate, not necessary that always it should be right, because it completely depends upon several factors. Suppose if you see our COVID example, the hospitality sector, especially the hospitality sector, there was completely a shutdown of this hospitality sector during the lockdown. So in that case, most of these companies who are involved in this hospitality, they observed a significant impairment in their assets. Because the problem here is the expectations was completely proved to be wrong, because no one expected that there will be a disease called COVID and there will be a shutdown in the economy for a period of 1 month. No one estimated that. So these estimates completely depends upon several factors. So that's why we always say it as a estimate. But when it comes to practicality, most of the managements or most of the company managements, they try to use this particular accounting estimate for their advantage. Now, for their advantage, in the sense, what I'm trying to say here is, suppose a company management might intentionally estimate a lesser useful life, because if they estimate a lesser useful life of an asset, then definitely the depreciation amount will be high. So the depreciation amount is high means then there is a possibility that the company might pay less taxes. That is one angle. The other angle is, if a company want to go for a loan, if a company want to apply a loan in a bank, now generally the banker will see the company profits. If the company profits are high, then the chances of getting the loan is also high. Now, in that case, what the company will be doing is they try to minimize the depreciation. How they will minimize the depreciation? Yes, estimate the useful life. Now, there is a possibility that the company might re-estimate a longer period of useful life so that the depreciation will be less and the possibility of possibility of increase in the profits will be high, so that they might get their desired loans. Participants, I believe you understood how the company will use these kind of estimates.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this
Yes.
is also happened. So that's why there is a very what is this in our ACCA? That's why we give most importance to our code of ethics, ACCA code of ethics. because it is your responsibility to follow the code of ethics, because you cannot simply follow, or you cannot simply apply, or you cannot simply draft the financial statements as per your own benefit. You need to follow the required accounting and IFRS standard, but still there are certain loopholes. Here also, accounting standard 8 allows me to change the accounting estimates. And it only says that if you make any change to the accounting estimate, then try to apply the change from the current year only. So there are certain things, I cannot say loophole, but there are certain areas which are taken, nothing but the company will use those areas for their personal advantage also. So that's why IFRS interpretation committee, they are doing regular practice to amend these standards. So if today we are learning accounting standard 8, maybe another 1 year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, you might find an amended IFRS standard also, which tries to fill these particular things. Okay. So I hope the depreciation concept is also clear. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now the review of useful lives, residuals, values, and the method. Now generally check the useful life, residual value, and method annually. It is, as I already mentioned, that for a public limited company, it is mandatory that they need to review these accounting estimates every year. Annually, they need to review it. And if there is any significant change, definitely they need to revise it. Now, when they revise it, if there is any change in the useful life of an asset, so depreciation will be computed on that particular basis. Now, the next element is disposals. Now, first we're done with how to recognize. Then in order to measure it, what are to be included, what are to be excluded. Then we started with the depreciation, how the depreciation should be charged by considering the useful life of an asset. And the next one, disposals. Now, disposals means if a company disposes an asset, if they sells an asset. Now, as per the conceptual framework, if you dispose an asset, if an entity disposes an asset, the proceeds of the disposal should be compared with the carrying value of an asset. Now, carrying value means, participants, you need to remember this only, because in ACCA, we won't use the word written down value. Instead of written down value, we always use carrying value. Okay. So here, when the asset is disposed, we'll compare the disposal proceeds. Disposal proceeds are nothing but the amount which we receive when you dispose an asset, and it will be compared with the carrying value. And the difference will be considered as profit or loss on disposal. Suppose if the disposal proceed is more than the carrying value, generally we consider it as profit on disposal of an asset. And if the disposal proceeds is less than the carrying value, we consider it as loss on disposal proceeds. Nothing but loss on disposal of the asset. And where we need to account this profit or loss on disposal, where we need to account it in the statement of profit or loss. So whenever an entity disposes an asset, the first step, you should compare the proceeds of the disposal with the carrying value. If the proceeds of the disposal is more than the carrying value, it is considered as profit on disposal. And if the proceeds value is less than the carrying value, we consider it as loss on disposal. Both profit on disposal and loss on disposal should be accounted in statement of profit or loss account. Now here I have a query, participants. Now, can the company management use this accounting estimate for their personal benefit? Nothing but to alter the financial statements as per the requirements. I believe you understood my question. Can they use it for their personal benefit?
Yes, sir.
How they can use?
They can show the disposal proceeds are more than the carrying amount. They can
Perfect.
show the loss.
Is it loss? Yes, I agree with you. Is it loss or profit?
No, no, it is profit, but they'll show it as a loss.
Correct. It means that, as he rightly mentioned, suppose same bank example I will take. Suppose if the company is planning to go for a bank loan in the near future, then what they will do, they might dispose an asset with a higher value so that they will be getting a profit on disposal. And this profit on disposal will increase the statement of nothing but it will increase the company profits. And one more thing I want to show. Let me open my Excel sheet. Now there are two companies. Let me take one is Wipro. The other company is TCS. Small example, let me take. The sales of Wipro company is 1 lakh. These are only hypothetical figures. These are not the actual figures. Try to understand. These are only the hypothetical figures. So sales of Wipro is 1 lakh. And the sales of TCS is 3 lakhs. Expenses, nothing but their operating, you can assume it as an operating expenses. So expenses are 70,000 and TCS expenses are 2,50,000. Right. Now, generally, if you see, the difference is 30,000 for Wipro and 50,000 for TCS company. Now, by seeing these figures, we generally assume that the profits of TCS is more compared to the Wipro. Right. Now, profit on disposal of asset. So Wipro company showed profit on disposal of an asset, that is 80,000. And there is no such disposal of an asset for TCS. Now, if you see the total net profit, if you see the net profit of this Wipro, it goes to 1,10,000 and TCS 50,000. Right? Now let us assume that the total shares, number of shares in these two companies. Both the companies, it means the total issued shares in this company, the Wipro company total shares are 10,000 and same TCS company shares are also 10,000. Now, if you compute earning per share, yesterday, if you can recollect, every company need to disclose earning per share in the financial statements as per their as per accounting standard 33. Now, earning per share is nothing but 1,10,000. That is the net profit divided by 10,000. So it is 11. When it comes to TCS company, 50,000 divided by 10,000, it comes to 5. Actually, if there is no profit on disposal of an asset, definitely the Wipro company earning per share will be much less compared to the TCS. But here, if you see generally what opinion an investor will get, as an investor, we always prefer the company which is having high EPS, because the first thing an investor will see is the earning per share of the company. Now here, when I see the statistics of these two companies, I can find that Wipro is having 11. If I purchase one share in the Wipro company, I am going to get an earning of 11. But in TCS, it is only 5. But what is the fact here, participants? Is it their organic profits? Definitely not. Because the Wipro company got this 11 EPS because of this profit on disposal of an asset. I believe you understood how the company will use these kind of things in order to overstate or understate their financial statements. Because the reason for explaining these things is the next element, the strategic business reporting, you should understand the effect also. So if the profit on disposal of an asset is increased, why a company want to increase it? So this is the reason why they want to increase. Of course, it may not be useful for financial reporting, but I want my students to master any concept which you know. I believe it is clear, participants. Any queries?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is about disposal of a asset. Now the last element in this is revaluation. Yeah. Now the revaluation asset, revaluation means you need to revalue the asset. So when we need to revalue, first you need to understand, is it mandatory for the company to revalue the asset? What do you think, participants? Suppose in 2020 I purchased an asset for 1 lakh. Now can I consider same 1 lakh, or do I need to revalue that particular asset every year? What
We have
is
to
your
revalue.
opinion? I need to revalue. Okay, one answer is revalue. Others?
The company can choose whether to revalue or not.
Perfectly correct. Yes, I agree with you. Company can choose it, but accounting standard 16 says that if there is any significant difference between the market value and the carrying value, suppose example, there are certain assets like if I take land, I purchased a piece of land. Let us assume that in your at your Suchitra circle. So I purchased a land in 2020 or 2019 for 1 lakh. But it now I cannot get the same land with 1 lakh. So definitely it may goes to 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs. It is not appropriate to consider same price to show it in the financial statements. So for these kind of assets, in simple terms, what I am trying to say, if there is any significant difference between the market value and the carrying value of the asset, in that case, generally a company need to revalue the assets. If there is no significant difference, suppose the carrying value of the asset is 1 lakh and the market value of the asset is 1 lakh 10,000. There is no significant, sorry, 1 lakh 1,000. There is no significant difference. In that case, no need to revalue. Of course, the company can choose it. I agree. But generally, the company need to revalue it when they want, when there is a significant difference in the market value and what is this carrying value. Now here you will be getting it out. If the company can choose this, if the company can choose this revaluation, they always tries to revalue the asset so that they can overstate their balance sheet, because always the company want to overstate their statement of financial position. The reason is, if a company statement of financial position is overstated, if it is high valued, then there is a possibility that its credibility or the chances of getting the loan will also increase. So because of this reason, there is a possibility that the company management might intentionally want to go with revaluation of asset. In order to minimize this chance, IFRS introduced an accounting standard called IFRS 13. Now, IFRS 13, anyway, we'll be discussing, we do have a separate chapter. Anyway, we'll discuss that. Now, if you want to revalue the asset, if you want to take the market value is not something what the managing director thinks. This is something which is computed on the basis of IFRS 13. As per the guidelines of IFRS 13 only, you need to compute the market value. You cannot figure on your, nothing but you cannot estimate your own figure. Right. So if there is a significant difference, yes, we can revalue it. Now, when you revalue the asset, now there is a possibility of either a revaluation gain or a revaluation loss. Now, revaluation gain or loss means the carrying value and what is its market value. Suppose, let me show this. Now, in 2021 books, the carrying value of the asset, and participants, please don't confuse. Carrying value is nothing but written down value. Okay, so the carrying value of an asset is 75,000. and its revalued amount when you revalued it is 90,000. Now there is a difference of 15,000. Now this 15,000 we say it as revaluation or revaluation surplus. Revaluation gain, or we can also say it as revaluation surplus. Now here you need to understand that this revaluation gain of 15,000, we need to show it in OCI. You cannot show the revaluation gain or loss under statement of profit or loss. You need to show this revaluation gain in other comprehensive income. So do remember this statement. Revaluation gain should be shown in other comprehensive income. This is only for property, plant and equipment participant. This is not applicable for all the non-current assets. We are discussing only about property, plant and equipment. If there is any revaluation gain on property, plant and equipment, it should be shown only in other comprehensive income, not in statement of profit or loss. Can anyone guess what might be the reason why the conceptual framework says that it should be shown in OCA? Why not in statement of profit or loss?
Because they can alter their accounts if they show it
Sorry?
in P&L account. They can alter the amount in if they show
Exactly.
it in P&L account.
Yeah, because if this option is not there, now don't you think the management can try to increase their profits? Because if they are allowed to show this 15,000 in the statement of profit or loss, definitely the profits will be overstated. If the profits are overstated, this can be overstated, earning per share. So in order to minimize that, conceptual framework says that you need to show it in statement of profit or loss. Right? Is that clear?
Yes.
And one more element you need to understand. In the statement of profit or loss account, generally, if this particular revaluation gain or revaluation surplus, now suppose let me show you. In the statement of profit or loss account, you will be already compensating with the depreciation amount because you try to charge higher depreciation when the asset is revalued. I believe you understood this because you will be charging the depreciation on 90,000 rather than 15,000. So for your understanding, let me open a small case. Participants, I hope the font is comfortable for you, or you want me to increase the font? Should I increase it or is it okay?
It's okay.
Yeah. So just please go through this question number 3. Just go through this question number 3. An entity purchased property for 6 million on 1st July 2003. So this particular property includes two elements. One is land and other one is building. So they purchased it on July 2003 for 6 million. The land element of the purchase was 1 million. So out of the 6 million, 1 million is related to land. So the expected life of the building was 50 years. So the expected useful life of the asset is 50 years and its residual value is nil. So after 50 years, it also makes sense. Definitely you will not get any residual value for the building. So that's why here residual value is nil. Now on 30th June 2005, the property was revalued to 7 million. So it means after 2 years, the property was revalued to 7 million, of which the land element was 1.24 million and the building element was 5.3 6.76 million. Now on 30th June 2007, the property was sold for 6.8 million. So this property was sold for 6.8 million. Now we'll see the requirement. Now what they are asking us to compute, what is the gain on disposal of the property that would be reported in the statement of profit or loss for the year 30th June 2007. So on 30th June 2007, how much gain on property, plant and equipment, nothing but how much gain on disposal should be shown in the statement of profit or loss. So this is our requirement. So I hope the question is clear. Shall I do it in an Excel sheet?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the first one, the asset was purchased. It was purchased on 1st July 2003. So we purchased it for 6 million. So we actually purchased it for 6 million. In that, land element is 1 million and the building element is 5 million. Now, when it was revalued on 30th June 2005, means after, sorry, participants, it is 2003. I'm sorry for that. So when it was revalued on 30th June 2005. It means after 2 years. So first we need to come, whenever you revalue an asset, first you need to know what is its carrying value on that particular date. It means we need the carrying value on 30th June 2005. Because the asset was revalued on 30th June 2005. We need the carrying value. So how to get the carrying value? Just by deducting the depreciation from this cost. So just I am deducting depreciation. Now how many years depreciation I need to deduct, participants? How many years depreciation?
2 years.
2 years.
Perfect. 2 years. Exactly. We need to charge the depreciation for 2 years. Will there be any depreciation on land?
No, sir.
No,
No,
sir.
no,
So
sir.
it is nil. Then building, can you assist me how to get the building depreciation value? What will be the
5
depreciation?
million by 5 years, 50 years.
Very good. 5 million divided by 50
50.
years, that is cost of asset is 5. Because they mentioned that there is no residual value, so I assume it as 0. So 5 million divided by life of asset is 50 years. And I will be charging the depreciation for 2 years. So 5 divided by 50 into, I hope it is clear. Then I got a depreciation of 0.2. So 0.2. So finally the carrying value will be 5.8. And the building carrying value will be 4.8.
4.8.
And there will not be any change in the carrying value of the land. So carrying value on 30th June 2005. These are the carrying values. Now what I will be doing, I will be comparing it with the revalued amount. So revalued. So when we revalued it, the land value is 1.24 and the building value is 5.76 and the total value is 7. Now do we get revaluation gain or revaluation loss? Because the carrying value is 5.8. Now the revalued amount is 7. Is it revaluation gain or revaluation loss?
Gains.
Is gain. So revaluation gain. So our revaluation gain is how much? 1.2. I believe it is clear now.
Yes, sir.
So we got a revaluation gain of 1.2. Now where we need to account this 1.2 participants? Where we need to show this?
Other comprehensive.
In statement of profit or loss account or other comprehensive?
Other comprehensive.
Other
Other-
comprehensive.
We need to show it in OCI, that is other comprehensive income. Clear? Yes. But the question here is what is the profit or loss on disposal? Because after 2 years, the property was disposed for 6.8 million. It is disposed for 6.8. Now again, if you want to compare the gain or loss on disposal, again we need to get the carrying value of the asset. We need the carrying value of an asset. So we need to compute the carrying value asset on 30th June 2007. So how to get the carrying value?
Depreciation.
2 years
Again, we
debt.
need to, yes, we need to charge the depreciation. So depreciation will be charged. There will not be any depreciation on your land. And what will be the depreciation on building?
By 48 years, because 2 years was already.
Yeah, 2 years is already done. Perfect. So we need to take 48 years. And at what value? Do we need to charge it on 4.8 or 5.76? Because
5.76.
exactly, because when you revalued the asset, we should charge the depreciation also on revalued amount. So the depreciation will be 5.76 divided by 48 years, the remaining useful life of asset. And I think 2 years, right? From 2005 to, yeah, it is 2 years. So it will be 0.24. So the carrying value will be how much? What will be the carrying value? 7 minus 0.24. So we got carrying value as 6.76 and the carrying value of the building, that is 5.76 minus 0.24. And there will not be any change, that is 1.24. So the carrying value on 30th June 2007. Is that clear up to here? Carrying value on 30th June 2007.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now finally our sale proceeds, nothing but disposal. Now we disposed it for 6.8. So when you dispose it for 6.8, so the difference value that is profit on disposal. So that is D minus So we got a profit on disposal of 0.4.
04.
So nothing but 40,000 is nothing but gain or profit on disposal. So this is the element how we need to deal with our property, plant and equipment. So here,
0.04, sir.
is it 0.04 or 0.
0.04, sir.
1 second. 6.8 minus. Yeah, it is 0.04. Thank you. 0.6. So 0.04, nothing but how much we will be getting? 40,000. So this 40,000 is nothing but gain on disposal, and where we'll account this in our statement of profit or loss. So this is about revaluation when an asset is revalued and an asset is disposed. So I believe the property, plant and equipment accounting standard 16 is clear, participants.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and there one more element on this. Let me show this. Just give me a second. If a company decides to show one asset at valuation, then it's required to revalue all the assets in that particular category. So it means if you have any specific category of an asset, now in that, if a company decides to show any one asset, nothing but if they want to revalue one asset, then it is mandatory to revalue all the other assets. Suppose for your better understanding, let me give an example. If a company want to revalue the assets in the marketing department, then all the assets in the marketing department need to be revalued. So if you choose any specific batch of asset, you cannot pick only one asset in that particular batch. If one asset is revalued, all the assets in that particular batch should be revalued. So this is the main important thing you need to remember. Clear? So this is the main point. Try to understand this. Right. So I hope it is clear. Shall I go with IAS 23 now?
Yes, sir.
Now just I will be giving a break. Just you can take a break for 5 minutes. So after that we'll start IAS 23. Don't log off. Just you can take a break for 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Hello.